Today is a very exciting day as today is new camera day. I pre-ordered the SONY A6700 from DigiDirect. So today we're going to unbox this camera, do some essential settings for photo and video, and then we're going to quickly meet up with Carlo for a quick photo shoot. So this video is going to be a no BS initial real world review of the SONY A6700. I will make a full in-depth review after about 1 month using this camera. So if you want to see that review, make sure you subscribe for future content. Let's just unbox this thing. There she is. This box is a lot smaller than when you buy a Sony a7 IV, so I'm going to be interested to seeing what's inside here. That stuff, don't need that. More paperwork. You actually get a camera strap with all Sony cameras. So you do get a Sony battery like all Sony cameras. These are not cheap. These are quite expensive. I actually just use third-party batteries. Here it is. Sony A6700. Wow, this grip is so much better. This is like an a7 IV grip or like my FX30 grip. Flip out screen, stoked with that. I would not buy this camera if it did not have a flip out screen. And you might be hearing a bit of a rattle. And that's because Sony, for whatever reason, they put these stupid straps. Like, why couldn't they just use the ZV-E1 strap? Bit disappointing. I usually just take these off anyway. So let's chuck the battery in and see if we've got any battery. Battery's empty, so 1 second. Lucky I have a bunch of these batteries. So I don't want to jump into the settings too much. I'm just going to leave down all my photography settings here and my video settings here. So if you guys want to just quickly pause the video, screenshot that, and then apply that if you just bought the A6700. Today we'll be shooting on these 3 lenses. So we have the 56mm, which is like an 85mm from Sigma, the 16mm, which is a 24mm from Sigma, and also one of my favorite lenses for Sony APSC, and that's the Samyang 24mm f1.8. So this will give us a 35mm, this will give us a 24mm, and this is going to be an 85mm in full frame field of view. So let's quickly go meet up with Carlo and test out this camera. Yeah, that's it. Just tilt the shoulder forward. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So. So we've just been shooting on the Sigma 16mm. Autofocus is like crazy. Now the autofocus has definitely improved a lot compared to the A6600. But yeah, we're going to change from the 16mm from Sigma to the 56mm. So 24 to 85. We're doing that, and then last time it was like that wide, you know. So this one's like quite wide. Yeah. Did you get an idea? Yeah. So I think just sitting there, just like kind of cuddle up. Yeah, that's awesome. Looking this way. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, look up at me. So if you guys are looking to upgrade from Sony's previous APS-C cameras, there's definitely a lot to be excited about. First thing I did notice was the updated autofocus, as it has that new AI chip. It's a massive upgrade if you're coming from the Sony a6600, and I did notice that it's smarter and faster than my a7 IVs and the FX30. Now I know a lot of you guys who do use a viewfinder are pretty bummed out that they did not update the EVF. I personally don't use a viewfinder unless it's on my film cameras. My friend Carlo actually loves using the EVF, and he had a go on the A6700 and I'm pleased to report that he had no issues using the viewfinder on the A6700. On previous Sony APS-C cameras, the colors were not the best. They just lacked in contrast and color density when you compared them to full frame cameras. And that's one of the main reasons why I just stopped using the A6600 over the last year that I owned it, and I would just use the Sony A7 IVs. And now that the A6700 has that new 26 megapixel sensor that you'll see in the FX30, there has been a huge improvement of color science. Now lastly, in terms of photography, it is pretty disappointing that the max shutter is still 1/4000. Also, I'm 100% certain that this is the exact same shutter system that was in the previous A6600. It's not the best sound. It's just really loud and actually quite high pitched. There's definitely a lot to be excited about for photography, but this camera has really been updated for video. And in my last video when the A6700 was released, you guys asked a lot of questions about stabilization. And I completely forgot how bad the Sony A6600 stabilization was, and previous generations like the A6400 didn't even have IBIS. So you do get the same stabilization that you see in the FX30. The first one is standard, and that's a lot better than the previous standard that was in the A6600. You also get active. Now this is the one that I use the most, especially when I'm using ND filters. You do get a slight crop. The only real disadvantage of using active is when you're doing fast pans, it might get a little bit sticky and a little bit distracting. And you also get the gyro data. The gyro data is insane. Like, you can get gimbal-like movement and cropping as much as you want. The only note I will say on gyro data is that you do have to have quite a fast shutter. So the video specs are pretty much exactly like the FX30. You're getting 4K up to 120 frames per second. You get that amazing S-Log free with the 10-bit 422 footage. That's amazing. Also, something that I'm really happy about is that you can import your own S-Log free LUTs into the camera. So I actually decided to make my own S-Log free LUTs that you guys can buy and import into your cameras. So if you have an FX30, if you buy the A6700, you can view your live exposure and how you would edit that footage in post. You also get that 2 base ISO of 800 and 2500. And in the comment section down below, let me know what videos you guys want me to do next with the A6700. I was thinking a A7 IV versus A6700, FX30 versus A6700, or the OG A6600 versus the A6700. If you want to pick up my LUTs and presets, they are linked down below. And if you guys are pretty interested in learning more about the FX30 versus the Sony A7 IV, I did make a video about it. You guys can watch that here. Otherwise, hit that subscribe button, check out my LUTs and presets, and we'll see you next time.